put their lives on the line for us, we would not be flying around the world today. Advancements in aviation can affect all of us more than we might realize. I enjoy history, look forward to the future, and also have a passion for aviation, which is why I'm very excited to share this information with you. The astounding advances in aviation have made passenger and pilot experiences, airspace, and equipment qualities and aircraft carriers more revolutionary. The airline flight experience has improved incredibly for both passengers and pilots, with an increase in numbers for both predictions and dramatically increased numbers in the future. Airplanes carried mail and cargo before they even carried passengers in the early 1900s. As passenger numbers increased, many changes have been made throughout the years to accommodate passengers. Travel times have been reduced tremendously, making it possible for people to travel by plane much faster and easier. It is estimated that the number of airline passengers in 1930 was around 6,000, and according to the 2018 International Airport Review, the number of airline passengers could double to 8.2 billion over the next 20 years. An article titled Empire of the Air by Van Vleck, written in 2016, states that if the early 1960s aircraft carrying civilians had the same accident rate per million flights, there would have been about 3 fatal accidents in the world per day in 2018, compared to only 9 actual fatal accidents that occurred worldwide for that year. We now know this to be an incredible prediction, but in Johnson's 2019 article titled How Airplane Design Has Changed Over Time, he noted that in the early 1960s, it was thought that airplanes might have become the next automobile, and one would obtain a pilot's license as easy as a driver's license. Now, I can personally relate this to my life, and over the years, you can tell this quote is indeed false, because will have taken me around a year to get my pilot's license and over $8,000 to do so as well, whereas my driver's license, it just took a few months per se to master the craft. I found this a very interesting fact, and due to the requirements of today's pilots, like I just mentioned, I know how much harder I have to train to become even a complacent pilot to study for my pilot's license compared to my driver's license. Pilots have learned to fly with innovations such as GPS, autopilot, and warning systems, which are all great tools, don't get me wrong, to assist in the operation of the aircraft, but requires a great deal of training, hours of operation, and attention to assure pilots are qualified to fly the aircraft today. Granted, these GPS systems are a great tool to use, but at the end of the day, all pilots still know how to fly the plane without GPS. Even though pilots have to be much more skilled in system operations, most takeoffs, like I said, and even landings are still performed manually and by knowledge of manual operations, which is still very crucial in today's world. Every day, these pilots and passengers board thousands of airplanes that cross in the airspace around the globe, which is made possible by enhancements to control airspace, including very high technical equipment. The modernization of air transport systems is making the airspace safer and more efficient with better predictability. In 1958, the FAA was given the responsibility to control the use of the airspace above the United States with the Federal Aviation Act of 1958 to protect people and property on the ground as well as safety in the air. Implementation of new technologies and airspace procedures is about halfway through the FAA-led Next Gen plan, according to the FAA's 2019 update article titled Modernization of the U.S. Airspace. You may or may not find this very interesting, but a pilot needs to know about airspaces they are flying through at all times. They are named according to size horizontally and vertically from the ground in order to organize the airspace. These are Alpha, Bravo, Charlie, Delta, Echo, and Golf. From impractical aviation monitoring in the 1900s to today's well-managed control systems, equipment advancements have led their way to this progress. With the expansion of commercial aviation in the turn of the century, these air traffic control centers were created in Newark, Cleveland, and Chicago, Illinois. In the mid to late 1990s, problems arose from these aging centers. Technology and other specific machines were becoming outdated and led to traffic disruptions and concerns for passenger safety. Fortunately, with modern technology and constant improvements to equipment manned um, by very skilled operators, the airspace is much safer for everyone else. In addition to airspace and related equipment changes, airplanes have changed the world of aviation from the Wright brothers' first powered flight in 1908 to what we now know as high-tech aircraft today. The early development powered aircraft was very experimental and used a laboratory in the sky rather than on the ground. Go back to a 2008 article titled Airplanes That Transformed Aviation, written by Richard Hallion, which discussed the introduction of aircraft structure called the stress skin shell, which became a global standard in aircraft design. These designs were first made out of wood, which were manufactured with metal, produced the first airplane to travel at a speed of over 100 miles per hour in 1912. This was the Wright brothers model replica, and as you can see, it had looks like an unstable wing base here, biplane with a rudder in the front and a very unstable horizontal stabilizer in the back, which is much different from even the design in the 1940s. This is a DC-3 used in World War II, composed of a heavier metal with two, today they would be inefficient turboprop jet engines, but at the time it was a very big jump in aviation transformation. Then you go to today's Boeing 747s and Airbus A380s, made out of a very lightweight carbon compound with very expensive but very efficient jet engines, $12 million a piece, but it's part of today's technology and it makes aviation what it is today. The jet engine was invented and the future of high-speed aerodynamics theories created in the mid-century. Continued enhancements and streamlining to structures eventually produced the high-tech airplanes that fly today. Improvements to wing, body design, and jet engines have been the dramatic changes that have enabled the commercial jet aircraft to travel at speeds of excess of 500 miles per hour. The size of airplanes have increased, with Airbus so big that it can not fly to many airports in the world because they cannot accommodate its size and weight. Watch for sonic technology that appears to be powering technology for the future, allowing higher speeds and efficiency in the United States military. In conclusion, passenger and pilot experiences, airspace and equipment qualities, and aircraft carriers have changed dramatically from the early 1900s to today with amazing advancements in aviation. If you have ever taken a flight for granted, I hope you consider everything that goes into improving that flight from long ago and appreciate how far this industry has come in even just 100 years. Also, the next time you board an airplane, think about the courage of the Wright brothers and all the other pioneers of innovative aviation advertising.